folks, we are going to take a moment and review just a couple of logistical details. Again, if you haven't yet done so, please make sure you type your full first and last name and where you're from. Follow Levon's excellent example, and hopefully Brenda and Ishmael's names will be typed in there too, because we want to make sure they get credit. Excellent, there it is, fantastic. And what I'm going to ask you to think about before I'm going to go through the logistics, but I'd like you to be thinking about this now, is since the last time we met, any questions, thoughts, or reactions about motivational interviewing? So any thoughts, questions, or reactions about motivational interviewing. So be thinking about that. You don't need to put anything in the chat at this particular point. Be thinking about that. And I'm going to just quickly review the basic logistics. Yes. So Nadia is asking what textbook, and I presume you're meaning the Miller and Rolnick book. So let me just quickly take care of the logistics, and then Nadia will start with that question, and then we'll go forward from there. Okay? Excellent question, and a very appropriate one. So just a reminder, I'm Paul. I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to be here with all of you for part 2 of our conversation about the theory and practice of motivational interviewing. Just a couple of reminders about our agreed upon guidelines. I'll just review them and then ask for your confirmation again. Number 1, that we want to be using language as we engage in this hopeful and hopefully a conversation similar to what we did in part 1, that is welcoming, respectful, and inclusive of everyone that's in our learning community. Second, because we are a learning community, what we talk about, what you bring to the table, what I bring to the table, may not necessarily represent the official positions of our funder, and that's okay, because our funder wants these conversations to be meaningful and relevant and supportive of the work that you're actually doing. What I would ask is that if Clara has the floor and is making a point, that nobody interrupt Clara. Let Clara finish her point, let her finish her statement. And then if you want to comment, if you want to add something, don't hesitate to unmute and do that. While I'm speaking, you are more than welcome. You are invited to interrupt me at any moment that you want to. Okay? So if I'm talking and you have a thought, you have a question, you have a reaction, don't hesitate. But if Clara or anybody else other than me in the learning community has the floor, please don't interrupt them. Good to see you this morning, Michael. Michael, did you have any difficulty getting in today? Getting into the room? You're going to let me know maybe. Okay. Can you hear me, Michael? Yes? Okay, good. Very good. Okay. Good. Okay. So what I would ask is, if you're not presently speaking, that if you wouldn't mind remaining muted, just so there's no background noise or no sort of space station echo kind of thing. But again, if there is something you want to say, if there is a comment, question, or reaction, please share it. What I would ask also is that if you are able to, if it works for your particular learning style, please do activate your camera and be on camera for the full conversation. If for whatever reason your camera's not working, the situation you're in, your particular learning style doesn't work being on camera, just send me, again, a direct message. You don't have to share it with everybody else, just send it to me. A direct message letting me know that you will not be on camera. And once I receive that, I'm just glad that you're here. And I'm glad that you're part of the learning community. And hopefully you'll participate through chat and through unmuting. If at any moment you need to step away and take care of something, don't hesitate to do that. Just send me again a direct message. Let me know you'll be right back, and then just rejoin. Heather, not a problem. It's perfectly okay. I'm just glad you're here. Second, or almost to the last, what I would ask is that if we could remember and be intentional about making I statements. I had this experience. I believe this. I know this to be true. I feel this way. So I'm just going to ask at this particular point, can everybody agree again to those uh, guidelines? And Nadia, thank you for letting me know. I'm very sorry to hear that. And feel free to do what you may need to do. Okay, so just take care of yourself. That's the important thing. And excellent, thank you for that confirmation. And again, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat if you if I can't see you, your confirmation of agreeing to the guidelines. The other thing I just want to remind everybody of, and I'm confident that you'll remember this, but I do need to repeat it, is that in order to receive credit for your participation, you must be here for the entire 6 hours. Unfortunately, we cannot give partial credit, nor can we give a makeup. So if you weren't here for part 1 and you're just joining us at this particular point, you're more than welcome to stay. And I need to let you know that unfortunately, we won't be able to offer you partial or any credit for your participation. We do offer this course again. So if it works better for you to take it at a different time where you can actually get the credit, if that's what you want, please make whatever decision is best for you. Okay? So just keeping that in mind, I will put on the table once more the question that I invited you to consider. And then Nadia asked a wonderful question in the, and Celeste, thank you for letting me know. That's great. Uh, uh, since we saw each other last, what thoughts, questions, reactions do you have to motivational interviewing or about motivational interviewing? Now, Nadia already started us off. So Nadia, if it's okay, I'll repeat your question and then I'll throw out the answer. Nadia asked which textbook or which edition of the Bill Miller and Stephen Rolnick book about motivational interviewing are we currently on? And I'm wondering, does anybody in the learning community recall what that was? And you can put it in the chat or you're more than welcome to unmute. If you, yes, Brittany's giving us the international sign of 4. It's the 4, thank you. And thank you for those. Yes, Sarah, you can put an exclamation point behind that, not a question. It is the 4th edition. And it came out, I think, maybe a little less than 2 years ago. Okay. And again, I'll give you one concrete example of one of the earth-shattering changes that appears in that book, which is the writing reflex, which we talked about, that desire to fix, solve, rescue, is now called the fixing reflex. I bet you all felt the earth move when I said that. But most of the changes from the 3rd to the 4th edition are linguistic. Things are called different things. Tony mentions the last session was a very good session. And Tony, I don't know if you're able to unmute, but if you are, would you be able to say, what was good about it for you? That's an open-ended question. But are you able to unmute, Tony? If you are, and you want to say anything about that, please do. And Mawahi, if that was a sneeze, God bless you. I'm getting the sense that maybe Tony is not able to unmute. Okay, but maybe Tony will put what was good about it for Tony in the chat. Oh, there you are, Tony. We can hear you. Go ahead. Mawahi is sharing some guidance for you, Tony, about saying it with your chest, like using
I'll have to talk with him about
Excellent, excellent.
He's
You
in
do
another
that.
part of the building, so.
Okay, okay. He's your coworker. Understood. All right. So, Tony, thank you for starting us off. Nadia, thank you for starting us off. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, reactions about motivational interviewing? Clara's giving this some serious thought, I can tell. Okay. Annie says, good morning. I'm sorry I'm not able to turn on my camera for the session, but you're here. That's fine, Annie. Great. Linnea, it looks like you're unmuted. Did you want to say something? Accidental? Accidental unmute? Okay, that happens. How to push through the conversation when clients resist. So I'm going to repeat Shamika's question, and I wonder if anybody has any thoughts about what Shamika is asking here. Because Shamika, I've heard that question many, many times, and I'm really glad that you put it on the table. So let me just, I want to say it absolutely the way you wrote it. And Shamika cannot unmute. And she put a kind of puzzled, not so happy face emoji. How to push through the conversation when clients resist. What do you think, folks?
I have some feedback. This is
Please,
Crystal.
please. Yeah, go right ahead.
So, I mean, and this is kind of the summary, just kind of the work in the summary. And I'm not going to use the motivational interviewing terms because I think over time I've kind of just started to feel it rather than use the words.
Okay.
It's kind of, I have come to realize that no one can resist what they want to do, so it resisting means that we're going on a path of something that you don't want to do. So
Okay.
I can never resist it. I don't resist the things that I want to do. Ultimately, I'm resisting what I have no interest in doing. So when we're resisting, you recognize this isn't the person's goal.
Okay.
Ultimately, so whenever there's quote unquote resistance, it
Okay.
is that we are walking down the trail that I don't want to go down. So when what we don't want to push through towards resistance has a lot of fight in it,
Okay.
and we want to move away from the fight, so a lot of it is a question of whose goal is it, mine or yours. So I really, it is, what is the goal here, so it's me saying I don't have a goal because I ultimately don't, and helping the client identify what's important, you know um so I think that kind of removes the feeling of the push, of the push through and the resistance. If a person knows ultimately they're only going to be doing what they want to do,
Mhm.
and what they have a desire to do and a desire to achieve.
Mhm.
So, so there it is, it becomes this thing of never having to push through in the conversation. And somebody
Mhm.
put embrace the silence. Sometimes we're not pushing because we're not talking, really, I don't want to talk. Well, let's not talk, and people usually feel the silence themselves when you give them a moment where you're not forcing them to talk, but they don't feel like there's any pushing, or they don't feel like there's any, we have to,
Mhm.
so it just really becomes almost a real motivational interviewing. I think over time becomes like just a real identity and a real way you just begin to see things. And so you begin to learn just to sit back, and let the person be themselves, and let the person really step into what they really really want, and you to identify that when you start pushing, that you have crossed the line into what you want. It really kind of becomes this awareness of when it feels like there's resistance in the back and forth,
Yeah.
that's your issue. It's not theirs. That means that, you know what? I'm pushing something that I want on this person, because the
Mhm.
person's never going to battle you to do something they want to do. They're only going to battle when it's in the grounds of, I don't want to do this, anyway. Person's never going to battle against doing, if I want to eat 5 pies, I'm never gonna battle you to eat 5 pies. If you say enjoy 5 pies, we're good. 5 pies are delicious. But if you tell me now you got to eat 10, I'm going to start telling you my stomach's going to hurt. Oh my God, 10 pies. But if you say 5 pies is good for you, if you like it, I love it, there's never a problem. So I think that's kind of the way I really have begun to see motivational interviewing is there's never, anything, there's never pushing through, there's never a resistance because we're always finding a way for it to be all your idea. It's never my idea. This is all everything we come up in this room is all your idea. So, I mean, I guess that's the way I would describe it of not having to push through a conversation.
Fantastic. And Mawahi, before I turn it over to you, I see you're unmuted. I'm going to turn it right over to you. I just want to underline two things that Crystal said, because Crystal said a lot, and it was all very rich and very insightful. And Crystal, I'm doing a very concise summary of what you said, and I'm going to say two specific things. And Crystal, if I mess it up, give me a thumbs down. But I'm gonna and jump in and correct me. But I'm gonna please do if I don't get it accurate. But what I want to underline that Crystal said is number one, if resistance starts to present from the client, that's a sign that we want to pay attention to. So it's not a bad thing. It's just what's coming up, and we want to pay attention to it. The other thing, and again, there are many things that Crystal said, but I'm underlining these two. The second thing that I really want to underline that Crystal said was that when you are interacting in an am I spirited or am I consistent way, and Crystal, you didn't use those words, but that's what you described. When you're interacting with the person that way, there's never any pushing through. You don't have to push through anything because you're not trying to force anything. How'd I do, Crystal? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Mawahi, thanks for your patience. I just wanted to underline those two things. Go ahead.
And thank you, Crystal, and well said what you were sharing. One of the things I would like to add is that 90% of the time when I'm interacting with these clients, you can pretty much expect resistance. For the most part, a lot of people that we deal in our population, they're either mandated, unclear about whatever. So there's going to be resistance, and that's just a natural response to change. And but that's the perfect opportunity, like you said, to focus on the resistance, because in the resistance is the information that you need to kind of start using the tool of motivation and interviewing to how do you, we use the word, talk about the ambivalence and the mixed feelings and whatnot that people may find themselves in a given time. Those resistance are the indicators to where we need how to approach. What I wanted to share by last week that I thought was just so phenomenal that just stood with me. One is that that always look at everything as an opportunity, and about when you're seeing the conversation going left, well, we there's still an opportunity for us to save that and get back on track. And I thought that was just so important for me to just always know that even if things are going left or whatever, if I can just allow myself to get back into that space, well, we can still save this opportunity to get the information out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks so much, Mawahi. And that really does relate to what Crystal said too, because if somebody starts to become resistant, that may be an indication that the conversation has started to go left. And that means we can course correct. We can choose a different direction so that we maintain the partnership or the engagement with that person. And Clara added in the chat, one of my biggest struggles is silence. And Clara, I don't know if you'd be willing to unmute and say anything about that, because I'm convinced that you're probably entirely alone in that experience. So what is your thought about silence? Why is that difficult for you?
I don't know. I think that For me, it just feels awkward, and I feel like I constantly need to fill up that space. Um, because I feel like if I'm feeling awkward, they probably are too. And I know it's kind of like projecting on like what these people are, but I've been in the position before where I've been to like a therapy appointment and she just stops talking. And then I just nervously, like I'll end up rambling for no reason. And I don't find that like super therapeutic. But the people that can do that, like props, because I struggle.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. Thanks.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
guys.
much. Yeah, and you know something? You prompt me. I'm not going to share this scenario right at this moment, Clara, but I'm going to put a pin in what you said about silence. And there's a brief scenario I'm going to convey to everybody in the learning community that touches particularly on this point. Because what I will underline, and I can't remember who it was who said that in the chat. Dylan said it, embrace the silence. I could not agree with Dylan more. And I
Mhm.
also can understand, Clara, from your perspective, why that embrace can feel so uncomfortable. And I want to underline, I want to link that to what Dylan is saying, because that silence, and I'll leave it at that. And we'll come back to it with this particular scenario. Okay. Excellent. All right. So again, the question is on the table. We are taught to do in all of our, yes, yes. You're taught that you have to be doing something. And usually that doing involves you talking. Yeah, yeah. And keep in mind, folks, the practice of MI is that we are intentionally engaging in a kind of conversation where we're inviting the other person to talk. We're inviting them to put what they're putting on the table. Antonio, the floor is yours. I see your hand and I saw what you put in the chat. I'm not sure if you're going to elaborate on that or something else, but the floor is yours. Go ahead, Antonio.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback off what you just said, but
Yeah.
for me, everybody has their own interpretation. Um, I come with my own style. I believe my own style is what makes me who I am and so effective when dealing with youth and people that are drug court. Uh, I believe that you do have to embrace the silence, but you also have to be able to have the ability to hold space.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you also have the ability to, if they don't want to say anything, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to force it down your throat. One of the things that they said we were taught, and I think it wasn't so much the profession, it was just a life skill. And this life skill is called control. We always try to control the situation. But as I've got further along in this process and dealing in this industry, this work field, I've learned that control is not the best asset at times. Sometimes it's good just to put it away. Sometimes I leave it in the car, because I'm dealing with people that are going to resist at any moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they might even be coming into my office with a toxic, dysfunctional attitude,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to accept that because it's not about me. I don't know how to say it, but I've learned that the only time it becomes personal is when I make it personal.
Mm. 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 Antonio, I don't know if you saw this in the chat, but Nadia had a question directed specifically to you. And I think it might be helpful. I think I understand what you mean by that phrase, holding space, but Nadia is asking, if you could define that for her.
The ability to hold space is that I'm self-regulated. I'm emotionally regulated. I'm safe with myself,
Mhm.
right? So I'm able to hold space, not just for the individual, but for myself. A lot of people like to use the word empathy. I like to go further and say empathy to me truly is being able to have the ability to hold space for someone,
Mhm.
right? And understand where they're at, not talk about it. Remember I told you a while back, true active listening is when we listen with our hearts,
Mhm.
not our ears, not our mouths. right? Sometimes, I don't know, man, I'm just still learning this. I'm still driving down this road. And in the process of driving down this road, I'm discovering that repetition is key, and this field continues to evolve.
Mm.
Not just motivational interviewing, but SUD counseling, drug court, which is what I do, continues to evolve. So I have to bend like a palm tree. I have to continue to adjust my patterns on how I approach my clients. You know, I got to keep it as normal as possible, man. I don't need to come in there with the counselor hat on and all that. No, 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 no. The most important thing for me is that they feel comfortable. And if they don't want to talk on the first go round, that's fine. I'm here for you. I always talk about this. I take footnotes from Goodwill Hunting, and I think it's Who Is or Saving Antoine Fisher. I believe Denzel Washington and the late great Robin Williams set the tone for what I think a true counselor should be when it comes to someone walking into your office.
Thank you. Thanks for elaborating on that. And Nadia, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Okay, I have a question, and I'm not trying to be disruptive, right? And it might sound like like I've been under a rock for a long time. Okay, but like, so I did court mandated drug counseling. I ran like anger management, substance abuse groups for Western Mass Court District. And because I was trained like clinically and then with motivational interviewing, like with adolescents, for example, I couldn't leave silence. Like there's certain people, the way I was trained, and you know, we were trained all so differently, right? So to a degree, if somebody had like emotional regulation issues, which most people in that were court mandated did, is I would intentionally not do that. So I wasn't using just motivational interviewing. I would have to, like, just like all of us, because we've been trained in so many different. So I intentionally would never leave silence, and it wouldn't anyways, because with substance abuse, I always had to use a sense of humor and joining. So when I'm listening to you guys, as I'm wondering, and I'm thinking, there's no way. Are you guys just using motivational interviewing? Are you using other clinical considerations at the same time? Okay, that's my question.
I'm going to guess it's the latter, but you know, but Nadia, your question really prompts me to want to go back to the pin that we put into what Claire was saying about the discomfort with silence, and it entirely relates to with what Antonio was saying about holding space.
Okay.
So I am going to tell this brief scenario now, and I'm going to ask you some questions as we move into this. And it's very much joining these things together, because I'll put it to you this way. I've had a relationship with the evidence-based practice of motivational interviewing, which is not all I use. It's part of what I use. But I've had a relationship with MI that has continued to grow and evolve and change for a little over 20 years. And it took me a very long time to realize that what I want to bring to any conversation, any moment, is my authenticity and my genuineness. And that's different than my style. Because the way I look at it, and I'm making an I statement here, I'm following our guidelines, they're my guidelines too. I feel that I can't personally afford to have a style. I can honor my genuineness and my authenticity in the moment. Ultimately, though, I am going to, and I'm thinking of Antonio's palm tree, I am going to bend and shift and adjust based on the person that I have the honor, privilege to be able to speak to. And that means that I am going to be moving in a variety of ways based on, if I'm speaking to Heather and Heather gives me some sort of indication, I'm going to adjust to that indication in order to help Heather do whatever she maybe needs to do or is working on. And I go back to what Crystal said. because Crystal made such a good point. Someone's not gonna fight you on something that they actually want to do or what's actually important to them. So my role is to help find that out. Okay, so here's the little scenario. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions in regard to this, but here's the scenario. Now, Antonio, I'm sure you're going to remember this scenario because I have used it in the past. It's true. It's an actual experience that I had. And a couple of other people may remember this scenario as well. I had the opportunity to be practicing motivational interviewing with a woman who was currently smoking 2 full packs of cigarettes a day. She had a behavioral change goal that she felt ambivalent about, which was she wanted to reduce her smoking to 15 cigarettes a day. So she wanted to go from 40 cigarettes to 15 cigarettes. That was her identified behavioral change goal. And part of her really wanted to do that. And another part of her really wanted to keep smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Okay? So what I hopefully brought to the moment was my genuineness, my authenticity, an am I spirited, am I consistent approach with the opportunity to practice motivational interviewing because there was an identified behavioral change goal that she felt ambivalent about. She had mixed feelings about it. She hadn't taken any action, but she had mixed feelings about it, and she was considering it. Now, the question I'm going to start by asking you, and you can put this in the chat, or you're more than welcome to unmute, and I'm asking you to guess. I'm actually asking you to use your best thoughts in guessing. Why do you think this woman wanted to go from 40 cigarettes a day to 15? Why do you think she wanted to make this change? The floor is open. What do you think? Why do you think she wanted? Okay, Sarah says health concerns. Mawahi says health. Liliana says health. Brittany says her health. Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Heather says health. Excellent. There's a lot of health in this room. Fantastic. That's great. Oh, Sarah says cost. Caitlin says maybe children. Crystal says cost. Sarah says health or money. Okay. Okay. All right. Michelle says health. Victor says it's expensive. Yeah, because 2 packs of cigarettes a day, it adds up. That's expensive. That's a lot of money. Okay. Health and cost, family pressure. She was not comfortable going any less than that. Maybe consideration for impact on others, money, health, physical goal. She's ambivalent. Caroline, she truly was ambivalent. Part of her wanted to do it, part of her did not want to do it. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you something, folks. She told me exactly why she wanted to do this. Would you like to know? Yeah? Okay. All right, I'll tell you. So we were talking, okay? Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, and this is the reason I know this is true. Antonio Ramirez says wanting more control, feeling ashamed or embarrassed. Victor says yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, you want to know, Victor. You want to know. Okay. And Brenda says freedom from dependency. Yeah. But she told me exactly why. And it seems that a few of you, including Victor, or maybe only Victor, I don't know, a few of you would like to know what she told me. So now I'm going to tell you. Oh, the thing I was going to tell you is I didn't mention that this conversation was recorded. Now, I can't share the conversation with you because of confidentiality reasons. I had an informed written consent, but I can't share it. But I can share the story because I'm not going to reveal any identifying information. Crystal says I'm killing you all. That's not my intention, Crystal. My intention is to maintain your engagement. Michael's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm so engaged or not. I'm going to see what he tells us in this story. So I was talking to her. She said to me that she and her 6-year-old daughter were sitting in their living room watching a comedy program. She was sitting on the love seat, and her daughter, her 6-year-old daughter, was sitting in a side chair. So they weren't sitting right next to each other. And they were watching this comedy program, and they were laughing and enjoying the program. And then a commercial came on. And guess what kind of commercial it was? Mawahi, you say everything with just that smile and your nodding head. Yes, it was that kind of commercial, an anti-smoking. You're going to get your fingers cut off. You're going to need a tracheotomy. You're going to drag an oxygen tank. So it was very graphic. During the commercial, neither one of them said a word to each other. The comedy show came back on. They were watching it. They were laughing. The woman said she didn't realize it, but her 6-year-old daughter had gotten up from the side chair and was standing right next to her at the love seat. And she said the little girl took her hand and put it on her mother's hand and said, "Mommy, I don't want you to die." That's why she was considering making this change. Now, keep in mind, folks, when we're practicing motivational interviewing, we are trying to invite this person to tell us why they're really considering this, what's meaningful to them, what's important to them. That moment was very important to her. And I don't know if you can feel it. I can still feel it when I tell the story, because I was there sitting next to her. And my question to you at this particular point is, what do you think I did next? She told me that story. She ended it with what her 6-year-old daughter said. So my question to you is, I'm practicing motivational interviewing. What do you think I did next? Caitlin says allowed her to continue. Lunia says opportunity. It truly was an opportunity. Mawahi says ask mom how it made her feel. And Mawahi, if you're willing to unmute, would you ask me the question? Because that's a question. Would you ask me the question as if I'm the woman and you're me? So would you just ask me the question the way you'd ask me?
I'm a little confused. Is this based upon her? So I put that my question would be asking her how did her daughter's reaction made her feel to get her to talk about that part.
Yep, that's fine. And that's
Okay.
a great description of what you do. Now I'm asking you to do it. I'm asking you to ask the question as if I'm her. And she's just said what she said. Does that make sense?
A little bit. So you asked me to ask you an open-ended question about it.
Yeah. The very question that you just described.
Yeah. So how did your daughter placing her hand on you in that moment made you feel? What were some of the thoughts that might have came across your mind and some of your feelings?
Okay. Thank you. So, Moahi, thank you so much. And you just asked a very specific and intentional open-ended question coming out of what just happened. Okay? And thank you for doing it, because what Moahi just demonstrated really skillfully is that there is a difference between describing what you would do and doing what you would do. There's a huge difference. And when we're practicing MI, folks, we are invited to do it with the person. We're invited to talk with the person. So a couple things are coming in the chat. Let's see what people are saying. And again, if anybody else wants to unmute and say what they think I did next. So Sonia acknowledges that there's an opportunity to change talk. Okay. Janika says, what makes her want to change? So I guess an open-ended question. Antonio Ramirez says, when a client says they want to cut back on their cigarette smoking, the next step for someone practicing MI is not to advise, instruct, or problem solve. True. Instead, an MI practitioner focuses on evoking, reflecting, and strengthening the client's own motivation. Again, a great description of what you would do, followed by Antonio then adds, what makes cutting back feel like the right move for you? Open-ended question. How would your life be different if you smoked less? Another great open-ended question. What concerns you most about continuing the way things are? Great open-ended questions. These are, all, in addition to Mawahi's, all excellent open-ended questions. Brenda says, yes, keep her talking about why she wants to quit. Okay, yeah. And I want to acknowledge that Brenda put lots of exclamation points behind her yes there. Liliana says her motivation to change was her daughter. That was enough of a motive to break her ambivalence. Very well observed, Liliana. And again, she probably still had some, but she had enough now motivation maybe to start to make a plan. Brenda adds, acknowledge her feelings for sure and summarize, which she just disclosed. And Brenda, I'm not sure if you're able to unmute, but if you are, would you follow Mawahi's excellent example and do that with her now as me as her? And we're seeing if Brenda's willing to unmute. She's leaning forward. I think she's moving toward unmuting. She's smiling. She's still in the room. She hasn't run away. Okay, fantastic. Hey, Brenda.
Can you hear me? Hi,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Ishmael.
Yes, Levon is also under my name in his office.
Okay, that's okay.
So I think that comment was from Levon.
Oh, okay. All right, Brenda, thank you so much. Are you sure you're just not passing the buck? No, I'm kidding. Fantastic. So I'll invite, is he able to unmute?
I need to check. I will check. Oh, he's coming. He's coming.
Who's the question? The question that you use.
What you say right there.
Yeah, so do you, yeah, you want to turn your mic off on your phone? Outer space, yeah. Excellent, go ahead, Levon. So
okay, what was the question, Paul? I'm sorry.
You put in the chat, let me just go back to it. You put in the chat what you described beautifully as Brenda. Yes, keep her talking about why she wants to quit. And then you added, ask her what thought immediately came to her mind after the moment. That may have been Brenda. But what would you say to her? And I'm asking you to say it to her as if I'm her. So what would you say?
I would, you know, acknowledge her feelings, right? You know, okay. So it seems like that commercial that you watch, you know, really, you know, got you thinking to, you know, cut down on cigarettes, right? And then I'll say something like, you know, what exactly about the commercial, you know, can you tell me a little bit more about that? You know, just to keep her, you know, talking more on, you know, why she wants to quit.
Fantastic. Now that was a hybrid of describing what you do and also doing it. So, and that's okay. That's all right. But the point I'm making is that we're kind of making the transition now into doing it. And you did that as well. And I want to underline that from what you took away from it, it was the commercial that had an impact on her. I wonder if everybody thinks that, because other people may have gotten something else at Lunia, you were shaking your head no. What do you think was the motivator?
I think the daughter touching her hand, because she said in your verbiage, you said that they watched the TV. She was watching the TV and laughing about it, but she didn't notice anything until her daughter came to her and put her hand on her.
Okay. And Lunia, thank you for sharing your perspective. And I want to underline, folks, and Antonio, I'm going to give you the floor in just a second, okay? I want to underline, folks, that there's no one right answer here. It's what you get from the moment with that person. And remember, my initial question was, what do you think I did? So what do you think I did after it? So just keeping that in mind. Levon, thank you. Fantastic.
Yeah, so I guess to say to that, so it would be important to ask, what about, the daughter touching your hand? Like, what was those feelings that came up, when the daughter touched their hand that made you feel the way that you're feeling right now?
Okay, so you're developing an open-ended question based on that. Fantastic, fantastic. And thank you so much. Antonio, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Based on the story and me having the ability to listen with my heart, there were some pieces to that puzzle, moving parts, right? One of them was the commercial, but I think that the top tier on the Family Feud list was the love that the mother and the daughter have for one another. Right? I think that's the motivating factor. I think that's the carrot that I would dangle, that I would put honestly to let her see. And then also, I'm thinking about people that don't smoke cigarettes, but people that smoke weed and people that drink alcohol. My job is not to make them quit. My job is for them to be able to manage it. That's why they got this thing called harm reduction now. And then eventually, if they quit, perfect. But it also gives me a moment to create a treatment plan and see if we can follow those goals moving forward.
Okay, fantastic. Antonio, thank you for adding that. Mawahi, what does RAWNY mean? Is that like Raw New York?
Yeah, Re-Entry Association of Western New York.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So that's the name of fantastic. Okay, welcome. Yeah, there are about 40 of you here, right? Fantastic. Come back every time. So Clara adds, I'm sure she's seen those commercials before, but her daughter was there. Shamika smiled and told her, that's wonderful, and asked her how she felt about her decision. Then you affirmed her decision and summarized what she shared with you. Okay. So you all, does anybody else want to throw out what you think I did before I ask you if you want to know? Does anybody else want to put anything else on the table about what you think I did next? Liliana says create or make a plan with her. Okay, thanks, Liliana. Ask her why. So another open-ended question. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll just ask, Victor, I'm just checking in with you. Would you like to know what I actually did?
Yes, I would. I believe, like just from seeing you on these trainings, that you will keep her engaged, and ask her feeling about her daughter and how she feels about the way she smokes.
Okay. Fantastic. Victor, thank you so much. All right. And for the one or two, Clara also wants to know. For the one or two of you who also want to know what I did, let me say this. There's no one right or perfect way to have responded to this. There are 47 of us, and actually there are more because Ishmael is here too, and there may be other people who are sharing a computer with somebody. So there are potentially 47 plus different responses that could actually happen. I'm not saying what I did is the right way. I'm going to say to you, it's what the moment told me to do. Because I was in the moment, and the moment told me what to do. It was not an intentional thought. I didn't go, beep, 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 beep. MI says I should do this. That's not what happened. I was in the moment. I was practicing motivational interviewing. She said what she said. And then I said absolutely nothing. I said nothing. Absolutely nothing. Any thoughts about why that was? Why I might have made that choice? Caroline says, I knew there was an asterisk here. And Mawahi says, mic drop, exclamation point. Shamika's like, what? So because it hurts her enough, you didn't need to say anything. Bingo. Let her language do its work. Let her motivation motivate her. If I would have said anything in that moment, and this is just me in that moment, he says, I love that. If I would have said anything in that moment, I would have been messing up her motivation. Yeah, Caroline says, yes. Celeste says you wanted her to stay with her feeling of pain and her DTR. What does that mean? Invoked. Celeste, you'll let me know what that means. Carol says you didn't want to break her train of thought. All of the above. I wanted her to be, her daughter. Thank you. The pain of her daughter, the pain that her daughter invoked. Absolutely. And Antonio writes, it's not time for change talk, Paul. Ironic, because what she said was change talk. So go ahead, Clara, go right ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask, is there an amount of time
I knew you were going to ask that.
Okay. Yes. Like playing chicken, like see who goes first.
No, I'll tell you something, Clara, and I'm so glad you asked that question because, again, you're not the first person to ask that question.
Right.
So what I'm going to tell you I didn't do was I did not take out my watch and say 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20. I wasn't timing it. I trusted my gut. I trusted being in the moment with her where what she said had enough time to actually for her to sit with it. And I just trusted my gut on that. And Clara, I'll be very honest with you, I don't remember exactly how long it was. But I did trust my gut that when it was yes, I wanted to let it sink in, Heather, you're right. Yep. I wanted it to sink in. And I did say something after it had done its work. Now, we're not going to play the guessing game. I'm not going to ask you to guess what I said. I'm just going to tell you.
Paul.
But only if you really want to know.
Paul.
Yes.
Okay, so you said nothing, right?
Nothing. I was present.
But
I said nothing.
You're sitting with the client. You're sitting with the client.
Yep.
She spills her guts about what happened between her and her daughter.
Yep.
You didn't even say okay.
Nope.
not even okay. So it's
No.
like if
I
I'm talking,
said nothing.
if I'm talking to you and you give me no response, I may interpret that as you don't care.
Possibly, yeah, 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 absolutely, Victor. And what I'm saying is that what I trusted in that moment, and I'm thinking of Antonio Ramirez as I say this, was that I was holding space for her to sit with her change talk. I was present. I was looking at her. We were connected, but I didn't say a word. Go ahead, Antonio. And then
how do you know you were connected? That both of you were connected. Maybe she felt he was connected, but you wasn't. You didn't say anything.
I didn't.
Not even okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I didn't even say okay. I have to admit it. I said nothing. And then I'm going to tell you what I said, Victor, because you may want to know. Go ahead, Antonio. I'll give you the floor.
He made a point, but also the other side to that coin is,
yeah,
he's listening to me. He's hearing me. He's feeling me. Yeah. He's having that ability to hold space, right? From going to a lot of your trainings, I've discovered that we don't need to initiate the change talk. When the client comes in and sets the table with the change talk, you let them process their own feelings. Because if you try to control that situation at that moment, they can also get up and walk out. Oh, he ain't listening to me, or he ain't hear nothing I said, right? Because that's a very intimate moment right there. So that space that you're holding for that person is giving them the ability to be human and say, I'm dealing with something and I don't understand. You don't need to say anything. That's why I go to those two movies that I reflected on. In the beginning, when Matt Damon and the other young man walked into the office, they didn't say anything. And it frustrated them, but they never left. They kept coming back. And eventually what happened was both of the clients continued to open up about what it is they were struggling with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Antonio. And Nadia, I want to connect what Antonio just said with your question about holding space, because that's an example of holding space for that person and not interrupting or inserting myself into the space. Now, I have a confession to make. And Victor, again, thank you for asking me if I even said okay. I'm admitting freely and honestly, I did not. And hang on to your seatbelts here. When I finally spoke, I didn't ask her a question. I asked no question. So if I didn't ask her a question, what do you think maybe I did? Because I was practicing motivational interviewing. And again, I'm not asking you to guess what I said, but I'm asking you to think, if he didn't ask a question, okay, Mawahi says affirming, okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts about what I did? Michael says reflected content, yes. And then the only other thing I could have done was summarize. Liliana, thank you very much, okay? So, Michael, I'm gonna say this to you as if I'm speaking to her, if that's all right. Is that okay? So I'm just gonna look at you as I say it. And this is what I said, folks. In addition to what I said, I want you to pay attention to how I said it. Because how you say something is just as important as what you say. Okay? Your daughter doesn't want you to die. That's what I said. That's a reflection. And if we were technically coding that, folks, that would be a simple reflection. Because it's just what she told me. There's no added meaning. There's none necessary. Okay? I just reflected back to her what she said to me. Michael, any thought, any reaction to that? I'm not sure if you're able to unmute.
Yeah. just that's like, yeah, simple, straight to the point. But it's certainly, yeah, there's a lot of, it's deep. It's definitely, and provoking as well. But yeah, within the realm, within the bounds of therapeutic. And yeah, like forming and continuing like an alliance with her. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Brenda says, I'll say a deeper reflection for sure. Okay. Mawahi says, I can see how that would be a very powerful moment. Yep. Liliana adds, that was what motivated her to begin with. Absolutely, Liliana. So I'm not going to ignore what actually motivates her. And all is needed to break the ambivalence. And again, to have an impact on the ambivalence. Caitlin says, I can see myself deeply struggling with that kind of simplicity if I was in your shoes. I am the verbal processor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sarah says, if I were Brenda, I would think he heard me. Okay. And Victor says, very touching. Okay. All right. Let me underline something here, folks. There's no one right response. That is what came to me in the moment. And then after it was over, I had the recording to listen to in order to then reflect on my practice. So remember, anybody can learn how to practice motivational interviewing. All it takes is practice, reflection on your practice, and then getting feedback from somebody who knows about motivational interviewing about your conversations with people. Anybody. You do not have to be a clinician. You do not have to have a degree to practice motivational interviewing. In fact, I'm going to make another I statement here. I'm a clinician. It was hard for me to learn how to practice motivational interviewing. I had a hard time because I had to learn when I'm practicing MI, this is not when I'm using these other clinician skills, my clinical skills. I'm using motivational interviewing. It's different. It's different. So having said that, folks, I'm going to share my screen with you, and I want to just touch on a few of the components, the elements in more detail that make up this evidence-based practice. We know it's a client-centered conversation between two collaborating partners if we're practicing motivational interviewing. We know that there's an identified behavioral change goal that the person feels ambivalent about. They have mixed feelings. They're on the fence. Part of them wants to do it, another part of them doesn't want to do it. When we're practicing motivational interviewing, we are actively and intentionally guiding that conversation to focus on the identified behavioral change goal that they feel ambivalent about. We are helping them to explore their ambivalence, and we are helping them to identify and verbalize their motivations to want to make this change. And once they verbalize those motivations, we want to put their motivations to work. Her 6-year-old daughter didn't want her to die. That was her change talk. I put her change talk to work in 2 ways. I held space for it to do its own work, and then I did a simple reflection of it back to her so she heard it again and heard herself. It was her motivation, not my motivation. And I'm thinking of Crystal as I say that, because there was no resistance. She wasn't resisting anything. It was what she put on the table. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to share my screen, And if again, if a couple of people would be willing to unmute when I share my screen and just let me know that visually you can see it, we'll cover these few concepts, and the rest of you can put a Y in the chat to let me know you can see it. We'll cover these few concepts. And then I have a very brief video that I'd like to show you, and I'd like to get your impressions about it. Okay? So I'm going to show you this brief video. Some of you may have actually seen it because it's a clip from a movie. Okay? But I'd like to show it to you because I think it's very relevant to this conversation. So first, I'm going to share my screen. And again, if you can, a couple of you can unmute and let me know if you can see the slide. I would greatly appreciate that. And I'm going to need to get it to full screen. So it's going to take. Okay, good. Okay, fantastic. So we ended on this idea that the interpersonal relationship you have, the engagement, the partnership you have with that person is your most powerful tool. There is a relational foundation to the evidence-based practice of motivational interviewing, and there's a technical component that we fuse together that make the practice of MI. Now, we've already talked about what client-centered counseling is, and let me underline, client-centered counseling is not the same thing as motivational interviewing. In motivational interviewing, we are intentionally guiding the conversation. It is directional. It is not directive. We don't tell people what to do. We do guide the conversation in a particular direction. And again, I'll just remind you of that really great article, The 10 Things MI is Not. If you like articles, it's short. You can get it on the internet. And if you can't get it and you want a copy of it, just let me know and I can see if I can find a copy that we can send out to you. We also talked about the trans-theoretical model last time, the stages of change model. We determined very clearly that there is a relationship. They are not the same thing. Stages of change is not motivational interviewing. Stages of change is a way of thinking about the overall change process. And the practice of MI is the actual method of how we talk intentionally with someone about a particular change that they're considering. Now, if I asked you to read all these 9 statements, why people change, maybe it's because their values support it. Maybe it's because they think it's important. Maybe it's because they have a good plan. Maybe it's because they have social support that can help make them believe that they can make the change. They have enough confidence to do it. If I asked you, and I'm not going to ask you to do this, but if I asked you to identify one of these that felt most resonant for you as something that might help you make a change, I'm going to guess, and I'm going to hopefully make an informed guess, that not every single one of you would pick the same number. And this relates to the little scenario that I told you about the woman who wanted to cut down from 40 cigarettes to 15 cigarettes, because when we're practicing MI, our job is to try and understand what is this person's motivations, not why we think they should be motivated to do this, but what are their actual motivations? And I'm going to put a pin in that for a minute because I do want to come back to that, because I want to relate their motivations to something that can come up sometimes in substance use services specifically. And if somebody would just remind me before I showed the video to go back to that pin about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So if somebody would just remember to remind me before I show the video to touch on that point, that pin, extrinsic to intrinsic. Now, I'm guessing that you can still see the slides and there is a gigantic eyeball looking at you. That's intentional. And now the eyeball has disappeared and you can see trust your gut, and the ear/heart is now beating, hopefully, on your screen. Now I'm going to stop this for just a moment so I can see everybody. And I'm going to ask us all to engage in a physical activity. And for those of you whom I can't see, once you've done this, please type the letter D in the chat for that you did it. Okay? I'm going to ask everybody to point to your eyes. Bless you, Brittany. Point to your eyes. Point to your ears. Touch your heart on the outside. And touch your belly. Okay, now let's do it all again together. Eyes, ears, heart on the outside, belly. Fantastic. Now, Heather, the reason I asked you to do that, and everybody else, is because what I want to underline here, folks, is that when we are practicing motivational interviewing, we are attending to that person on 4 levels simultaneously. We are visually, if we have the capacity to see, and not everybody does, but if we do, we are visually assessing their presentation, their nonverbal communication, their body language. We are listening to what they are saying and how they are saying it. And we're also listening to what they're not saying. We are also, if we are, and I'm thinking of Antonio Ramirez as I say this, if we are also regulated, if we are self-regulated in the moment, meaning we are calm, we will have the ability to attend to that person with what we might feel in our heart and also in our gut, in our belly. Okay? When we're practicing MI, folks, we are invited to draw from all 4 of those opportunities of attending. That is how I knew how long to keep the silence. I was trusting my belly, my heart, and what I was watching. Now, it may not have been right, but I did the best I could in that moment with what I was getting. Where these 4 levels simultaneously as you grow and advance your skills, in MI, where these 4 levels will be beneficial is that you'll actually be able to make what are called complex reflections. A complex reflection means if Sarah is listening to me and I tell her something, and the way I'm telling it, my tone of voice of telling it, my nonverbal communication of telling it, indicates to Sarah that somehow what I'm telling her is causing me a lot of shame. I never used the word shame, but I sure did communicate it. And if Sarah picks that up, it might be appropriate for her to reflect that back to me. And I'll give an example. She might say something to the effect of, if the behavior change I'm considering is cutting down the amount of alcohol I'm consuming, she might say, you know, as you talk about the role that alcohol has in your life, you're expressing a lot of shame about that. No judgment, not a question. I never said the word shame, but she picked it up. Now, she may be bingo, right on the money, and that's called accurate empathy. She also may be absolutely incorrect. And I might say, no, Sarah, it's not actually shame that I feel. I actually feel guilty. Well, guess what? Both are great because she's helped me to even more clearly identify what may be at play here. So that's why those 4 levels, that's why it's important for you to be reminded: eyes, ears, heart, and gut. You are invited to bring all 4 of those levels when you practice MI. Okay? It will help you. It will absolutely help you. I'm going to share my screen again. This is not the video I'm going to show you. I may save this or not for our 3rd session. There's another video that I'm going to show you today, but I'm not going to show it right at this moment. And what I'd like to just touch on briefly is the fixing reflex, formerly known as the writing reflex. Miller and Rolnick, the creators of MI, that have released their 4th edition of their book, Motivational Interviewing, Helping People to Change and Grow. And I repeat the title because that's a slightly different title than the title they had in their 3rd edition.
Yeah.
So that's why I share the title.
Easy.
What they identify is that if somebody expresses their ambivalence to us, and we're in the helping profession, we're a peer, we're a counselor, we're a clinician, sometimes what that can do is that can trigger in us what they call the fixing reflex, which is this desire to want to fix, solve, rescue the person. And what Miller and Rolnick are actually suggesting that we do is, first of all, normalize the fact that everybody wants to, or often helpers want to, just naturally fix, solve, or rescue. It's a human response. If you see somebody in pain, or if you see somebody moving toward pain, or if you see somebody doing something that maybe you did and was very painful for you, you may just naturally want to try and fix, solve, or rescue them. Some people in learning communities in the past have called that the superhero cape. You know, I put on my cape and flew in to try and fix it. What Miller and Rolnick are saying, Antonio, I'm going to give you the floor in just a second. But what Miller and Rolnick are saying is that if that feeling comes up, you're not a bad person, you're not a bad peer, you're not a bad counselor or clinician, you're simply a human being. And what they ask you to do is to acknowledge that you're having that response and don't act it out. And I'll say more about that, but I'm going to hand the floor to Antonio. Please, Antonio, take the floor. It's yours.
Man, Paul, that's why I love you, man. Well said. You continue to sharpen me, man. When I came in, I was a butter knife. Now I'm a Ginsu. Now I'm turning into a bayonet. The reason why I say that is because that was my approach when I first came into this industry.
Yeah.
Always tried to fix the situation for the client, and it becomes strenuous. It becomes, I'm emotionally exhausted. They're emotionally exhausted. They check out and they end up deferring or going to a colleague of mine. And a colleague, great colleague of mine, I consider a mentor, would always tell me, everyone that comes into the agency is on your caseload, whether you know it or not, right? And you have to treat everyone like that. And they may not see it the way you see it. You know, now I'm gonna give you some this is some inside detail. I come from lived experience, right? So I come from a lived experience, and I think because what I've experienced, they've experienced, and that's not how this goes. Everybody that walks into my agency, it's a different variation of them. So I cannot make it like, oh, you got it, so you got to get it. Nah, man, that's not how it works, man. And I'm still peeling back layers of that, not just with myself, but with my clients. But I understand more how to address those issues. That's why I said that key holding space. You know, if I'm not right with myself, I can't be right with my clients. You
Yes.
know, I got to be right with myself. So when I'm right with myself, I'm able to listen with my heart. If I'm not right with myself, I listen with my mouth and I listen with my ears. And at that time, it may not be enough, Paul. So, I mean, these classes that I've been attending for over a year now, you know, and it's repetition that keeps me going, you know, because I may forget something and then it pops up and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I got to do, you know. So it's just adjusting, man. When I say the palm tree, I don't break. I just bend. I'm able to bend with each client, you know. And then also what happens is the clients now look for me. Hey, Mr. Antonio, Mr. Antonio, how you doing, Mr. Antonio? You know, right. And some of them say, you know, it's like going to school, man. Everybody has their own way of bringing it. But what I discovered in this counseling process, we're just a big bowl of fruit. We got to know what piece of fruit we are and how we can align it with our way that we move in our agency, right? I don't know if I'm making sense. I use a lot of analogies. I hope I'm not confusing someone.
No, I mean, you're not confusing me. I cannot speak for everybody else in the learning community, but to me, one of the things I'm taking away from what you're saying, and I take this away, you know, having had the honor of knowing you for as long as I have, I take away that the more you get in touch with your own authenticity, your own genuineness, and your willingness to reflect on what you're doing, the sharper, the more effective your conversations with folks seeking services have gotten. And that's really what I take away from what you're saying. And that made complete sense to me. And Antonio, I appreciate that you unmuted to comment on this, because I'm going to guess that you're not the only person that maybe started off or maybe still feels like, well, you know, my job is to fix, solve, and rescue. And again, we can assist people in making the choices that are right for them. And ultimately, it is not our responsibility to fix, solve, or rescue. The person would, of course, need to be able to do that for themselves. So Miller and Rolnick are saying, you know, you're not bad because you want to do this, but they're asking us to consider when we're practicing MI to not do it. Because if we do, sometimes it can have very negative consequences. And what they suggest is a little acronym, because they love acronyms, but a little acronym to help you to remember that when that feeling comes up, if it comes up for you, and it still comes up for me, I have learned to manage it. It still comes up for me though. Is R, we resist the fixing reflex. We don't act it out. U, we put our energy into trying to understand what the person is telling us and what their motivation or motivations may be. And we redouble our energy to actually listen to them, which means if we're listening, we're not talking, which goes back to what you were saying, Antonio, about that holding space for them, because we don't feel compelled to talk ourselves. We're setting that aside and we're holding that space for the other person because we're in control of what's going on for us. And then the third piece is that through this practice, we can actually empower people. And that means something very specific in the practice of motivational interviewing, which is that we empower them by allowing them the opportunity to consider what's right for them, to consider the actual change that they may want to make, to consider if they're there, to consider what is the plan that they may want to engage in, and also letting them take steps to follow through on what they think is the way to proceed. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to add something here, which I want this to be very clear, because I know that for many of you, your jobs involve sharing information and maybe sharing parts of your lived experience in an intentional way. And the thing I want you to keep in mind is that when you are practicing motivational interviewing, you can do that. And you can do it in a way that's consistent with the practice of motivational interviewing. So we're gonna, yeah, go ahead, Moahi, please.
So I want to just go. So going back to the rule thing, the savior stuff. Do pardon me. I was having a conversation. I wanted just to go back on that before we move on.
Of course.
Definitely hands down, probably one of the biggest things that I struggle with in this field. I remember struggling with the whole harm reduction concepts, whatever. So I recall one of my first experiences working in the hospital. One of my clients, severe medical history, liver destroyed, young man, young wife, 5-year-old daughter, severe alcoholic. I'm talking about so severe to where it's literally like I'm able to see his doctor's charts or whatever, like he's dying. Young man, probably mid-30s.
Yep.
And it got to the point to where even for our one-on-ones, what harm reduction looked like. So he started sharing with me how he used to get up, drink this many bottles of liquor in the morning. To where literally part of our process, every time for our morning sit down, like the guy probably, the little shooters, like he'd tell me maybe he'd get like 14 of them. So we're literally, his harm reduction was like, okay, well, I'm down to 8 and I'm sitting having a conversation. You can smell the alcohol on him. But not only this big picture, this man is dying. He knows he's dying. And in your mind, you're trying to conceptualize going back to the hero thing, because for me, I'm like, my God, if this is my child, I'm throwing all of this harm reduction, all of these things out the window. I remember vividly coming back when addiction coming to the rooms where recovery started with abstinence, and that was just that. I remember the philosophies in the room when you come in through those doors: shut up, don't say nothing, listen.
Yep.
There is a lot of wisdom in those things, right? Particularly when you're dealing with individuals who are so engulfed in their addiction. Yeah, they're probably not going to make the best right decision. Yeah, they're probably not thinking clearly. They're probably not doing a lot of these things that is very obvious to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing the path their life go on. And I swear it took me, and I still struggle with it a little bit today, but it took me a while to truly understand, yeah, this is not your program, Wahi. It really is the individual, whatever the individual, and you can literally be right there watching the individual suffer, dying, passing away, and your mind, you think what's obvious is just oblivious to them, and they're carrying on these risky and dangerous behaviors. And at some point, you really, my God, you really got to come to a point where you do, like you talk about holding space and creating that space, because yeah, it could be frustrating, it could be challenging, it could be just downright sad. And I asked myself, like I said, if I looked at that in my car, there's no way I'm letting my daughter, my children won't have a decision. I'm gonna make that decision for them. At least that's what I'm thinking as a parent, right? But we all know how that goes as well, right? You still got individual kids, still gonna do what they want to do. But hands down, one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn doing this.
Yeah. Moahi, thank you. And to your point, I want to repeat what you said. Hands down, one of the hardest messages you had to learn. And I would venture to guess, for anyone who cares, for anyone who has empathy, it will continue to be a struggle, because sometimes people will make choices that, and I'm making an I statement here, people have made choices that I don't like. I don't like the choice that person made. It's their choice to make, though. It's not mine.
That's right.
And that doesn't mean that I can't offer information in an MI consistent way. And we're going to talk about that more in part 3. And it doesn't mean that I'm still not doing what I need to do to take care of myself. Because Moahi, the scenario that you described, the client that you had, I can imagine that must have brought up a lot for you. Helplessness, anger, fear, a whole host of things. And that's just part of the nature of the work, folks. This is not easy work. Yeah, go ahead, Victor, please.
So that is a learned skill. not being able to fix and bring everybody back to where you want them. And as you said, people are going to do what they're going to do, right? So I've been in the field a little over 30 years.
Mhm.
In a little over 30 years, I've seen some really good people die because of their decisions. Their decisions. And you talk to them and you let them know, look, you know what? You really need to take a look at, how things are going for you, what are the benefits, what are the cons, so on and so forth. And 30 years later, I still want to fix people. I still want to fix people. But you know what? Some of us have to die for others to live.
Mm.
And it's sad. It's sad because we want everybody to live. I mean, everybody's going to die at some point, but we want everybody to live, and we don't want them to die from active addiction.
Mhm.
But it's something that happens. It's something that happens. And sometimes those tragedies, you have to use those as opportunities to teach others of the dangers of the disease. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Victor. You know, it does really remind me, folks, that, and I think, Antonio alluded to this earlier, when we practice motivational interviewing, and remember, we're practicing motivational interviewing under very particular circumstances, when there's an opportunity to do that, because the person has an identified behavioral change goal that they feel ambivalent about. And we then can actually use this method of conversation. To Mawahi and Victor's point, though, sometimes people, the choices that they make, we don't like them, or sometimes it shortens their lives or destroys the quality of their lives. And again, that's a very painful thing to witness. And don't misunderstand me. There are ways that if you feel you do need to share information or you do want to offer feedback, there's a way that you can do that if the person is open to it. That's MI consistent. Okay? So just keeping that in mind, and we are going to talk a little bit about that as we go forward into part 3. Nadia wrote in the chat, it is a commitment on our part to monitor our countertransference and our own coping. When I began in 1996, there were super counselors who burnt out and relapsed a few times a year. And again, Antonio alluded to this earlier, when you give up the fight of trying to fix, solve, or rescue somebody, you can actually be more effective. You can actually join with that person in a more effective way. Also, Shanika writes in the chat, the book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, resonates with me during this discussion, which presents success isn't just achievement. It is a state of inner fulfillment, peace, and alignment, not through struggle or intensive effort. Yeah. Shanika, thank you for sharing that with us. And thanks for sharing that as a resource for people to...
I got a question, Paul.
Yeah, go ahead, Mwai.
Isn't it too easy to assume that most of us who come into this industry, we're in this industry because want to be a savior, right? Like, how else do you come to this industry without trying to make a change and trying to make a difference? And obviously seeing what's going on in the world, whether personally, whether externally, or whatever.
Yeah.
But we enter into these fields because of what we see. And we enter with the ideal of how can I help make it better or add some kind of change or value.
Yep. And Mawahi, I would venture to guess that's why everybody is here, in addition to the 6 hours of credentialing credit that you'll get. But I would venture to guess that is why people are here, because you want to be able to bring your best, most effective self to the interactions that you're having with your patients and your clients. And MI is one way of engaging in conversation with somebody where you can intentionally bring your best self and help that person to exercise their autonomy. Antonio Ramirez, the floor is yours.
Well, I just got to take a note from your book, man. In the beginning, you said we can use this in all phases of our life, not just in the work area. You know, motivational interviewing has changed my perspective on how I deal with people, how I treat myself, how I conduct myself, how I carry myself. You know, it's just different, man. It's looking from a different lens. And if you're able to look from a different lens, you see, I'm looking past myself, you know, because early on, I would only look at what's best for me. Now I look at what's best for us as a whole. You know, if I look at it from a collective standpoint, I'm winning. If I look at it from an individual standpoint, I may lose sometimes.
And I want to link what you just said to what Shanika said, because sometimes we have to be very clear about what we're determining is success or treatment. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Shanika. And I appreciate that affirmation of your head nodding, because sometimes we can put our definition of what success or achievement is on somebody else, and we are then pressuring that person. And we're not meeting that person where they are. And again, the big takeaway in regard to this, folks, is sometimes when the fixing reflex is acted out, it can have the absolute opposite effect. It can cause the person to be more committed to what it is they're considering changing, to keeping things the same. And the worst outcome is when the person decides, well, why the hell would I go talk to that person? Because all they're doing is telling me what to do. And then they're lost to care. So it means there's no opportunity to further engage them. Shanika, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think in this season, what I've been learning is that a lot of people don't like pressure. I think a lot of us already feel a lot of pressure from many places, right? And so I think, some of the messages, that have been coming to me is take the pressure off, live a simple life, right? Do things that you enjoy, in these seasons of your life. And for me, and when I'm working with my clients and my clientele and things like that, that's not up to me to determine. And I know, for those who work in the substance abuse field, you guys know that's a journey. It's a decision every single day. And every day is not going to be their best day, and we all fall short of glory. We all fall short. But and I don't and especially this perfectionist, you get people who especially us, clinicians, we want their life to look very perfect. Like, because what does it, um make us feel better that, wow, like we got this person and we helped this person to get to a day, a week, a month, a year of sobriety or treatment of whatever sort that they're receiving.
Right.
And that pressure, it's a lot, for us, it's a lot for them. And I like to say, just let's all take the pressure off, right? This is a journey. It is, a very long journey in that. And there's going to be lots of seasons in people's lives. And I think what we need to really focus on, I also think of, solution focus. I think of mindfulness, right? Just taking that pressure off, like you said, being a palm tree and being very flexible. And, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So, it's for them, especially. For us, it might seem like a sprint because, we'll see them and we'll get them to a good place and then we'll discharge them, right? But they have to keep running their race. Right. And so this is a marathon that they're on. And so we have to take the pressure off, and they have just the little, and I tell people to focus on the little things that make you happy. Go back to some of the things that, okay, well, what worked before, and I know things change, right? The responsibilities to this, to that. And I tell people, I work with a lot of young people. So I told, if you don't want to, with school, you don't have to be in all the AP honors, you don't have to have this full, schedule and or get into the big and the best college or whatever. It's okay to just get into a college and live a very simple life, right? For some of our clients, right? Instead of taking so many drinks, like the cigarettes, just lowering it and things like that, making things a little bit more simple, a little easier. That stress, taking that stress off, that pressure off, and us too, right? As their clinicians and their support people, we have to find ways of taking that pressure, because it doesn't need to be, in which ways, whatever that works for us in our techniques and our styles, taking that pressure and that struggle, it should, things shouldn't feel like, for them, whatever that is, that inner peace, I want them to feel whatever that is. It might be them using for the rest of their life, right? I mean, that could be their journey, or once a month or during the holidays, and they'll relapse or whatever the case, right? But them to feel that inner fulfillment and peace and that alignment, right? What are they aligning with right now in the season of their life? Like, what can we, and how can we kind of get into their alignment and understand them and not struggle and go, and we're like, and this intense and I've noticed that a lot of people don't want to struggle in life. They don't want this intense effort. Like, that scares so many people. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And you really prompt me to want to share with the learning community, and maybe we can start to draw our conversation today to a conclusion, but you remind me of something that I had an opportunity with a couple of other people to talk with Dr. Stephen Rolnick, one of the creators of MI. We were on Zoom with him, and he agreed to let us make this little video with him in it. So we each prepared questions that we wanted to ask him, and we wanted to get his, responses on tape. And my colleague, Billy Joe Smith, asked him, Dr. Rolnick, what would you say to people that are new to motivational interviewing to help them, move into this practice more effectively? And he paused for a moment and he said, I would say, what I'm going to say is, for people that are new to MI and for people who do MI all the time. First of all, it's not about being perfect. It's not about that pressure of perfection. And then he said, I came up with these things called the 6 C's. And basically, this is what he said. He said, if you can let go of clutter in your head, like, what are the things that are renting space in your head right now? Can you let go of that clutter? When you're talking to somebody, can you let go of the idea that what you say has to be clever or smart or intelligent? And third, can you let go of control? Can you stop trying to control the situation? And then he said, what you can bring to the moment, and this is the 4th C, what you can bring to the moment is calm, a regulated self, a not pressured self. You can bring your curiosity. What is the person telling me about? I'm curious about what they're thinking. I'm curious about why they're considering this. And then the last thing he said is, you can bring your compassion. Whatever they're going through, you can bring compassion to that moment to try and be open to hearing what they're saying and hearing what they're feeling, bringing compassion. So he said, that's what I would tell anybody who's practicing motivational interviewing. And if you can focus on those 6 things, he said, chances are you're probably going to be able to be very effective as you continue your journey on this path with motivational interviewing. One final thing I'm going to say before I say thank you and have a good afternoon. Well, actually two. Thing one, the video that I mentioned, we'll look at it together next time. We don't need to put any pressure on ourselves to watch it now. So we'll look at it next time. It'll still be there. It's on the internet. Go ahead, Mwahi. Yeah, question, comment? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're muted. Your mouth is moving, but can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, quick question. So you mentioned something earlier about how motivational interviewing is only for when the opportunity is there, right?
Yes.
So as I'm taking that, that's like, okay, a client coming to see me, he's in my office, he's talking change talk. My question is, so outside of that opportunity, say for instance, I get a warm handoff.
Yeah.
And obviously, so for instance, I work for a reentry program, right? So I'm pretty much aware of the needs of 85 to 90% of people walk through. Can I take that understanding without my client even opening their mouth? For instance, doing a warm handoff, I'm just meet somebody, how I'm trying to engage them or whatever. I don't hear nothing about change talk. I know that you here in this agency, in this building, because you have some kind of need. How do is that a motive? So do motivational interview apply to that, or no, hey, why wait till you hear some change talk, then pull that out? Other than that, keep motivational interviewing on the shelf.
Okay. Fantastic question. This is what you call a doorknob question. You get this like very complex, thoughtful, insightful question in the last 3 minutes of our time together today. Love it. So we're going to have to put that pin back in the intrinsic extrinsic point. We'll start with that next time. But Mwahi, to your question, which I think is, and I'm not surprised that you would ask this question because of your insight, your deep insight into this. Remember, if somebody's offering change talk, folks, it's about a specific change that they're considering. It's not general. It's specific. Okay? Now, when you're talking about a warm handoff generally means that there is a referral to some other kind of care or some other kind of service, and you are helping that person to connect. Now, also remember that you can bring an am-I consistent approach, an am-I spirited approach to any and every conversation. It does not require an identified behavioral change goal. Only the practice of am-I requires that. And that's where you fuse the relational, the engagement, the rapport with the technical, intentional ability to be able to explore the ambivalence and to grow their motivations, to strengthen them. So that's a pretty short answer, Mwahi. But if we need or want to revisit that in part 3, bring it right back. Okay. Yeah. Folks, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. If you did not type your full name and last name, full first and last name, and where you're from in the chat, please make sure you do it now. If you did it, you're okay. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you for part 3. Take good care, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Take good care, everybody.